So I guess we'll just get started, I suppose.
Yeah.
For anyone who's been to a Cyber Lounge event before, this is obviously quite a bit different. For a start, we're on LinkedIn Live instead of Zoom. So this is more of an open forum, just kind of chat, just to kind of come together and talk about anything interesting in cyber. So, any of you attendees, feel free to hit us with a topic and we'll see what we can chat about, and we'll be happy to maybe get some of you on the actual coffee morning in the future.
Or the water and green tea morning, as it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully I'll remember a coffee next time, or at least something morning.
Just before we do, Stephanie, thank you very much for your kind words there. He's fine. He's having his operation today, so hopefully we'll have him back home by the end of the week. So, but on a news front, I think we've made a mistake having a session to talk about cyber, because quite frankly, there's nothing else really to talk about other than Harry and Meghan on Oprah last night.
Yeah, did you watch that?
I must admit, I didn't. We were going to just for fun, but on hearing some of the press stuff from the original airing in America the day before, yeah, we decided it was just too painful. But it's an interesting, what you can take from it is it's an interesting way of withdrawing from public life, to go on Oprah.
Yeah,
and I think that's. It's one of the mechanisms that has a parallel into all business worlds of you've got to have integrity, and you can't you've got to stand by what you're saying you're going to do. And if you're saying the media, if the reason you're withdrawing from public life is that the media is too intrusive, don't then go on talk shows. It undermines your reputational value, and if companies were to act in the way that they're acting from that point of view, irrespective of whatever's behind it and whatever's going on, on a personal level, and that's a different thing. But don't say one thing and do the other, because that's going to kill your organizational reputation faster than anything else. And then it doesn't matter how good your cybersecurity is, because you won't have any customers. So that's the kind of my key takeaway from that whole saga. And I guess other things picking up over the weekend in the news. I've got to go to John McAfee. Although he's no longer anything to do with McAfee, antivirus products, it just goes to show, if you set up a company in someone's name rather than an independent piece, you've got someone who's clearly lacks integrity massively, using and Stephanie's just pointing out there about deep fakes of Harry and Meghan, which yeah, I mean, you've just given them a load of footage to do that, and at the same point that deep fake technology is part of social engineering, which is a growing threat vector into cyber resilience defenses, and you've got John McAfee, who's using social media to generate fake stories to bump up, to bump and dump cryptocurrencies, because it's the abuse of a following and still trading off the name of McAfee, to sort of say, as a trusted provider of AV products, you should listen to the guy that designed it, when actually he's using his knowledge of those threats and how to conduct a cyber attack to effectively deliver a human cyber attack, by manipulating people to talk up the value of cryptocurrencies, so that he and his clearly a highly astute financial partner, former Navy SEAL bodyguard, there's a clue there of not to take cryptocurrency advice from a bodyguard. But there you go. People have, and he's made a lot of money out of it, and now he's been caught, and it's just another thing on the list of things to do. So again, that's another big piece of reputational interest from from the weekend news. And the other piece that I really picked up over the weekend was actually one from our good friend Ian Murphy, and and it was over the portrayal of cyber criminals. And you're not going to like this, Adam, as hoodie wearing. The images that, and I'm guilty of it myself. When you go on Pixabay and try and find an image to go with your post, and you type in cyber criminal, it's usually some sort of version of a screenshot from the Matrix with the ones and zeros wandering down it with some shady dude in a hoodie crouched over a PC. And
every time,
I think Ian's point, it is a valid one about, we're using the same stereotypes, and actually, it would be far more compelling to find some, picture of some, I don't know, 17, 18-year-old kid, sat in his bedroom in Idaho, because actually he's far more likely to be, sitting there, typing away in his bedroom, hacking people on a daily basis after school, So creating this stereotype that all cyber criminals look like shady hoodie wearing, dudes is actually counterproductive in the long run, because it's creating a personality of a cyber criminal that, you could be a 75-year-old, former head CEO of an antivirus product, right? And it doesn't look like he wears a hoodie. So, and yet he's a fairly low integrity character, shall we say, diplomatically. So I think that those are the sort of general things I picked up over the weekend. It was a fairly quiet news cycle, but definitely those are the sort of trends that I noticed rather than individual items.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's kind of interesting as well, because so many of the people that we have on the Cyber Lounge webinars tend to be wearing hoodies, ourselves included. And similar to what you were saying about trying to find stock images, a great deal of the time looking for like cyber experts, they tend to be stereotyped in hoodies as well, like ethical hackers, penetration testers.
Yeah. You actually think about it, it's an extension of, at the end of the day, in the 21st century, a hoodie is a comfortable piece of clothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is, piece of clothing. And I think, anything that takes us away from, the sort of 1950s onward, you must be wearing a tie in order to be taken seriously, which is just garbage. Mm-hmm. And this shift to remote working in the last year has really proven that, because if you're sat at home in your dining room wearing a suit and tie to do a Zoom, you actually look a bit daft these days. So it shows a rigidity that doesn't match the pace at which the world is moving. So I think that's that's good. But it wasn't long ago before oh dear, I shouldn't have mentioned Harry and Meghan. It's set the chat off. But it's important to show flexibility, but it also links back to that time when, the ASBO and the chav and the hoodie was associated with that sort of, street criminal type thing. And then you've got the influences from sort of gang culture in the States. So at the end of the day, it's a piece of clothing, and it's the way that we create these images that cyber threats come from a single type of person or type of organization or subsector of society. It's completely false. And whilst it's effective and the marketing looks great, and it's following that style, the ones and zeros, and it's they're all kind of, there's padlocks everywhere, right? There's padlocks everywhere on those images. So it's either a hoodie guy with a laptop, or there's some sort of padlock or vault door or something. And again, that turns everything into about the defensive posture, and doesn't think about our offensive capabilities to proactively go out there and hunt cyberspace, to be cyber resilient rather than just playing this sort of constant forward defensive stroke of saying, well, it's defend, 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 defend. Because these days it's as the quote goes, there's two types of companies: those who've been breached and those who are yet to be breached. Look, I mean, not forgetting the Mr. Robot, rip-offs as well. But look, there's one guy not wearing a hoodie. So you see that one there in the middle. She's probably a victim of cybercrime, not a perpetrator. But she's just as likely to be a perpetrator as any of these more Matrix-looking characters. So I think it is, it's just worth, thinking about as we move forward, being a bit more intelligent about, if we want to get our message across and we're not getting our message across effectively to the general staff community, that's really important to do. I just want to pick up on something that Sapphire, it's manipulative and comparing to the social engineering reputation was interesting. Personally, yeah, good. Stereotypes being misleading. I don't think how you dress really has got anything to do with professionalism. I think it's about the words that come out of your mouth and the actions that come out of your body that really dictate how whether you're taken seriously or not. There are, of course, there are still some companies, and it's about being flexible from my point of view, in terms of how you dress. And I've always believed that it shouldn't matter, and I'm gutted because years ago I found a lecture from London School of Economics, and the professor that was leading the lecture was actually talking about how a tight collar and a tie actually constrains in many people. It constrains the blood flow to the brain, and therefore actually is hampering your ability to think creatively. I've never been able to find it again, however much Googling I've done. So if anyone knows of that lecture and can find it, then I'd love to have it, because it's such a powerful tool to sort of say, you look back in history, you look at the way the army dresses now, you look at the way the police dress now, you look at many professions, and they've adapted their uniform to suit the job that they're doing, rather than this sort of rigidity of Boer War era, red coats and the stuff you see with the guys guarding Buckingham Palace, the sort of ceremonial dress, which used to be the ordinary dress, and that's evolved. And the only place that what you wear hasn't evolved is in the corporate environment. It's slowly changing, but still not there.
Let's just go back to what Stephanie said. I just wanted to look at that. She said there is a great marketing video of a woman hacking a company from a coffee shop through social engineering. I think she says something like hides in plain sight. I wish I can remember it, and if I do, I'll send it to you. It's really good.
That's exactly it. And that's exactly what we need to do, is we need to mix it up a bit more. It's a little bit like, again, I saw over the weekend, someone had got in touch with CyberOff because they'd seen some adverts that they thought were the CyberOff kind of quite jaw-dropping. Some people find it offensive, some people just find it shocking, some people just sort of find it funny, but it was like, let me give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, reasons your password is weak. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is still one of the, the top passwords that's used by people, and it's extremely hackable. And actually, it wasn't. It was a Swedish campaign, because it was actually on sort of bus stops and billboards around Sweden. And it stops you in the street and things, because you think, my goodness me, because you're challenging people's stereotypes and perceptions. And I think, Stephanie, if you do find that video again, that would be a great one to show, because we've got to start, as an industry, we've got to start thinking a bit more intelligently and a bit more left field, rather than just, as you showed from Pixabay there, and whether you type cyber or you type hacker, as you did, whatever you put in there, and whether you look at iStock, whether you look at Pixabay for the free stuff, or even the paid stuff, it's all following that same trend. And it's only going to be by us demanding different images and shaping a different profile that will start to help that consciousness that not all hackers sit in a basement in the dark. So I think that's a great shout, Stephanie. For
sure, yeah, and it kind of reminds me of that advert that, or is it some kind of BBC piece that surfaces every so often, where they ask people what the password is, and they'll say something like, "Oh, it's my dog's name," and then they'll ask like 3 questions, and then they'll reveal the dog's name, or something along those lines, and it's just that simple in some cases.
Yes, and you compare that to the scaremongering COVID adverts that are certainly on the radio. I don't really watch much TV, so but out in the car, you hear this: "Are you doing enough to protect yourself from spreading COVID?" And it's all this sort of fear, doom, and gloom, and it's like, you just go, well, you've just told me that a third of the population doesn't have, any symptoms at all, right? So that's a third of the population that's not going to die in the way that you're saying. You're also telling us that you're 20-30% of the way through, immunizing the population. So that's not going to, so they're more protected. It's just completely ineffective, marketing, just trying to bully you down by broadcasting stuff at you. Whereas showing someone, the cyber version of a, David Blaine card trick, chucking the cards at the window by those simple questions that people answer innocuously, and then they demonstrate to you, you've just enabled me to, get into your computer. I can then probably find your bank details because you've got everything set up with passwords being remembered by everything, and I've got your life. And that's interestingly something I talked about last week. I think it was last week or recently anyway. I put out a post by a jaw-dropping moment I had by finding a password manager pocketbook on Amazon for £15. So cheap.
Yeah. Let me try and pull that one up.
And it's funny because I then talked about a suitable solution, and kind of combined it with the fact that I'd recently changed from LastPass to NordPass. Again, because of a rather daft piece of customer relations that LastPass did, which was to effectively spend 3 years promoting your free service and then tell everyone that you can't use your free service on anything more than one device, so it renders it useless. And actually, NordPass reached out to me after that, and we've been having some dialogue. I've been having some dialogue with them, and we're going to be hopefully collaborating on some more content with some of the things that they're looking at the moment in terms of trends. Look at this. Oh, I didn't realize it was in such a range of beautiful colors. But wow. I wonder what the pro version does for £32. Right? This is cynical marketing, because who are they really targeting this to? Well, let's be honest, they're targeting this to the older generation who isn't as tech savvy, and probably keep this book next to their address and phone number book, on the hall table next to the telephone, right? And any iffy workman or visitor who gets their way into their house can pick up this little book, slot it into their into their bag or pocket and just be out of it. I'm pleased to see it's got some fairly shocking reviews, but
although the reviews tend to be more about the size of the planner as opposed to
the issues it causes. But it just, to me, it just shows, and I noticed just quickly as you were flashing through there that those reviews were in multiple languages, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a global problem. It's not a UK problem, and yet we're clearly not winning the fight. So to me, it really says we've got to think differently now and ditch the same old stuff, and think about it anew, get fresh people in with a fresh perspective, from a broader range of perspectives, from a broader range of industries, because, it's not always about, having the most techie, geeky, highly competent person, because the people who are actually falling for these tricks are the ordinary people in the street. And if you're not asking the ordinary, if you're not engaging the ordinary people on the street or sitting in the office chairs, why are you blasting them with all this complex stuff that immediately switches them off? Another thing I noticed on, I had a quick scroll down the cybersecurity hub, which is a fairly prolific LinkedIn poster, but they're quite often just short, sharp things that they have, and lots of infographics. And I looked down their posts, and sort of 20 posts were complex infographics with loads of words on them, loads of little, pictures and things to make it look a bit jazzy. But at the end of the day, quite technical information, and too much of it in one go. Now, the people who are going to read that are the people who are either reading it to find a fault with it and say, I know better than that, that's the wrong thing, which is a classic cybersecurity trait, or it's only going to be interesting to those people who actually probably already know that stuff. And then I scrolled down, and there was one post, and it was a picture of a white mug with a blue cloud on it that said, "There is no cloud, it's just someone else's computer." And I was like, bam, that has impact. To me, it's simple message. So, so we need to stop firing volumes of you must do this, and this, and then you might be safe, right? One message clearly says, don't think the cloud is this super duper, it's just someone else's computer that you're accessing. And when you boil it down to that is enough to tease people to think, oh, what does that mean? And then you could add one or two lines underneath it, to enrich the learning opportunity. But bombarding people with all of this stuff it's just going over people's heads. So we've got to do it differently.
Well, that's the real issue with any kind of buzzwords. You think it's just it comes across as automatically superior, whether it's cloud, AI, military grade, machine learning. It all causes the same kind of issues.
Yeah, and there's a fault on both sides. Those, historically those buzzwords came about from the media because it was a way of generating, momentum. And again, were they generating momentum for, for the good of the public consciousness? No, they were trying to sell newspapers. It's also been, unfortunately, the way that whether it's hiring in the cybersecurity industry or just the culture in cybersecurity teams, because historically they've been quite siloed, as organizations, or as team members, and not necessarily playing well with non-tech people, because again there's a sort of knowledge gradient, a perceived knowledge gradient that this sort of superiority, because they can read all these texts full of acronyms and jargon and follow it. But it's it's not helping. So trying to make yourself sound more technical by rattling off a load of acronyms, what's the point? You're just losing the people. You're not achieving your objective, which is to make the organization more resilient. That's the only reason you're there as whether you're a cybersecurity person, a cyber resilience person, that's what you're there for. So, trying to make yourself sound more intelligent by having a bunch of, letters falling out of your mouth every 5 minutes that nobody understands, probably including the person that's saying them, isn't serving anyone. So again, hubris needs to be left at the door. But I think it's also comes down to hiring and who's getting jobs in cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of getting a job in cybersecurity, interesting question there from Bilal. He said, I have a simple question. Is it illegal to hack a company to schedule a job interview? And it's kind of funny because I think it was CyberHub or Hacking Articles or one of those LinkedIn pages posted something about the graphic where someone has invited themselves to a job interview by hacking their way into the calendar. Have you seen that one, Paul?
I haven't seen that specific example, but you know, I have heard of that being done before, and I think it's a lovely gimmick, and it, you know, it probably worked once.
Yeah.
You know, and in fact, if you look at you know, certainly in the US, but I'm sure GCHQ is no different. You know, they certainly have a history of employing hackers who've been caught. You know, when the breach that hacker has achieved has impressed them, they've either used the sort of interview interrogation of you know, once that criminal's been apprehended, to try and learn how it was done, you know, to spot where the vulnerability was, or they've been so impressed by them they've given them a job and they've turned them around and set them back on their, you know, their former peers. So there's a long history of that happening, and I think unless I think you've probably got a better chance if you have some, you know, industry changing new solution that's not just another, you know, another layer of, you know, of security, but a genuinely, you know, paradigm busting solution. It might be worth it, but it's probably not on the recommended list.
That's one of the various images I saw.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it's a great meme, but you know, I think you've got more chance of ending up in an uncomfortable interview room, which has got cells beneath it, rather than an interview room that's got an IT department. So I guess legally, Bilal will have to say it's not advised, or certainly Adam and I don't advise that you try and get yourself hired by hacking a company. Yeah.
We also have actually in regards to the password books, Kath said, I've got one of those, vastly cheaper version though. I hope all your passwords aren't written in there, Kath.
Well, so Kath, if you've got one of those, then hopefully the couple of things we've mentioned is there, and I'd certainly urge you to look out for. Because we might even run a Cyber Lounge webinar in conjunction with NordPass, which they're quite keen to do somewhere down the line, that really talks about, you know, explores more the vulnerabilities of that from the real experts, which these guys are, and some of the research that they're doing, and I hope that will persuade you that leaving something, you know, I think in my post I said you might as well slot a £20 note between each of the, you know, alphabetical tabs, just to make it even more of a free gift for someone, you know, whether that book is stolen out of your handbag on the tube, you know, whether you accidentally leave it somewhere or it's left lying on your desk in the office, then, you know, everything's exposed. You're literally putting your life out there. You might as well, you know, the danger with that is people will then put their bank details in it as well, because they think it's the place that they keep all their sensitive information. And yet, you know, all you have to do is be pickpocketed, have your handbag stolen, have your briefcase stolen, you know, your rucksack, which, you know, if you work in a big city is a threat that everyone's exposed to all of the time, or you have to be careless with it, or even down to the fact that, you know, you know, pages that come out, you know, get chucked in the bin and then someone's going through your rubbish, you know, less likely. But, you know, the point is there are things that are actually much easier to use, that can be properly integrated with all of your digital devices, and yet maintain this level of security that you need, and enables you to have 26, 30, 40 character passwords, which just give you much better than password one protection. So Kath, I really hope I'll try and find you and send you the link to my post, and then more than happy to answer any questions you've got, if you need any more convincing to use that book only for lighting fires in your living room, obviously in the fireplace, not just
how much time do you have, Paul?
I'm okay if people are.
Yeah, it looks like we've still got 13 people actually, which is great for a morning. I was expecting more like 2, but especially with the technical issues. So that's great to hear. If anyone else has any more things they want to talk about or chuck up on the, we'll put them up on the screen. I did actually just want to go back and talk about the webinar that we ran on Friday with Naomi. For anyone who's seen her around, Naomi is quite a big name in cyber on LinkedIn, especially in the US, and has worked with quite a lot of people, it seems, to help them get cyber jobs. So we ran a webinar with her on actually using LinkedIn as a tool. It was more of a Q&A where a lot of people just asked different questions about how they can make the most out of LinkedIn and how they can essentially get noticed on there. So I'm going to send that. I'm going to link that so that everyone can have a look. But it's really ideal for anyone who doesn't have a career yet in cyber and is looking to get one, rather than the usual route of sort of asking what certifications you need. It just adds another significant layer to your portfolio, I suppose. So I will link that in. It looks like we have a question here. Do you want to take that one, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, are there plenty of firms out there today thinking, do you know what our cybersecurity team lacks is a criminologist? I doubt it. In terms of moving forward, and this is an area where I think the cyber world is getting it wrong, and it also links back to what Adam was saying about Naomi's recent webinar. We need to change and expand the number of competencies that we are bringing into the cyber world. Now, whether that's psychologists, whether it's criminologists, whether it is again the poacher turned gatekeeper and hackers, who have decided to now work on for the good guys rather than the bad guys. I think there's value in that. Now, whether each company needs one person from each of those fields, I don't think so. I don't think that's realistic. But I think there's certainly room for a community body of people to share experiences and learning opportunities from a much broader range than historically have been taken seriously in the cyber world. There's far too many people who literally will say, "Oh, you don't have CISP. I'm not going to listen to anything you say," right? Because that's become the almost the minimum conversation. And someone like me who's just a CISM, oh, he doesn't know anything. He's not super technical. But we've been focusing just on this sort of technical skills for a long time now, and yet the breach statistics are going up. They're not coming down. The attacks are getting worse. So that strategy is no longer working, and there's a sunk cost in here. And I think it's having a reflection that you're seeing more and more demand at entry-level positions to have, CISP, CISA, CISM, all of these qualifications Plus they want 5 years experience before you even, take on an entry level role. I mean, it's frankly ridiculous. And to me, it's just an indication of a sector in distress that doesn't have any solutions. So they're doubling down on what they've already got, which is we need better tech people. We need more understanding. We need to dig this hole deeper and deeper and deeper, rather than looking to expand, and take more in it. So, if you think there is value to a criminal, what the question is, can you consolidate the value that a criminologist could bring to a cybersecurity team, and then using some of the sort of types of skills and mechanisms that Naomi talked about, start talking about it. Use LinkedIn, generate some noise around your topic, right? Because that's the only way you're going to get traction and change people's thinking. It's obviously not the only way. It's a good way to get started into that conversation, because we need to move the conversations forward, and we need to take up the anchors from the existing 5 things that we think about as the roots of cybersecurity, and it has to change. And I think now, following 2020, which I keep talking about as the big reset, now is the opportunity for people to think a little bit differently about how solutions can be put together. So go for it. Start making some noise about it. I'd certainly be interested to hear your perspective on the value that a criminologist can add into a cyber team. So please tag me when you do post something about it, and we'll start the conversation going. And speak to Adam. Maybe there's an opportunity to get that discussed in the Cyber Lounge, and then let the peer group see if there's real value in it, and then that will give you a good indication to properly answer your question.
Exactly, that's the kind of thing that the Cyber Lounge is for, starting that conversation, something a little bit different. Feel free to just start that in there and tag myself and Paul in, and
I think there's another great example of exactly that happening. One is the cybersecurity ratings webinar that we did not long ago, where we got the guys in from Security Scorecard and Air Now. But I think also, is it your next webinar, the gamification?
Yep, that's tomorrow.
With PR, later this week. That again, these are things that are not necessarily the classic topics, but because they're things that have come out through the conversations that I've been having with Adam and Anthony and Holly and Burhan from the Cyber Lounge, and as a result, this has started conversations. As I said, I posted the other day, and NordPass reached out to me to see if there was anything we could do. So go for it. You've got nothing to lose apart from a bunch of people saying can't see the value, and then you just have to go back again and improve your argument, until people start to listen to what you say.
And a positive thing that did come from Naomi's webinar, the whole thing was positive, but something I took away was she said that she's found the most success with just text-based posts where she tells a little story. So you don't need to create an Ian Murphy-esque video. You don't need fancy graphics or anything. Just give people some information. Tell them a story about how you've dealt with something, or how criminology has helped you to do something in cyber, or anything along those lines. And that's, I guess, what LinkedIn wants to see at the moment. It's going to give you the most possible reach, and share your message to as many people as it can.
And let's not be coy about it. There is an element of this that you have to learn a little. You have to dig under the hood of how the LinkedIn algorithm works, and you have to understand how to not only the words that you want to say, but how whether you put a video with it, because that might get fewer views, whether you do just a text post because it gets maximum exposure, how it gets picked up by the algorithm and circulated. So don't be disheartened if the first time you write on a subject you get nothing. right? If you're passionate about it and you believe in it, keep going. Use forums like the Cyber Lounge rather than just putting it out on your feet, because automatically you're reaching people who are likely to be, working in that space. And if your argument is compelling enough, the conversation, will start. So, you do have to work at it. It's not just, one post of utter genius and suddenly you're an internet superstar overnight. With job offers pouring through the door, you are going to have to put the hours in, to get it done. But if it's a story worth telling, tell it.
Exactly. Do we have any last things we want to address before we close up our water/tea morning?
I'm just looking at Sapphire Eagles. McIntyre's comedy sketch on passwords is eye-opening. Again, Sapphire, if you have a link to that would be great to share. I'm all in favour of that. It reminds me of another one I've seen recently. I think it was a UK comedian, and she was pretending to be the computer and another person was pretending to be the user, and they were typing in passwords, then captures, then those ridiculous, typing in the show what it writes in the box below, and no one can ever read what's in the box below, and all these different things, and the computer coming back going, I think humor is an extremely, particularly for a UK audience, humor is a particularly effective mechanisms that many corporates feel too, someone mentioned it earlier, the Edwardian bibs, that they're too straight-laced and uptight to think about how humor, how putting stuff out there in small behavioral nudge chunks, thinking on a social media feed basis rather than I know that's a bit hypocritical when we've been sat on this for 45 minutes, but rather than a 45-minute block of time, on one subject, you certainly wouldn't want to do that. Oh, great, we've got the link there to YouTube for that sketch. So I'll be sure to check that out. But yeah, if you've got, I don't want to take over what goes in the Cyber Lounge, but I certainly, any of those sorts of links to slightly left field ways of making a point, I think those are great things to share with people. Because at the end of the day, it helps to make people think differently, and for me, that's what it's all about at the moment. Is break the the tunnel vision that we've got, that there's only one way to boil an egg. Let's think differently and see where it comes to. And clearly from the conversations that we've got here, there's a lot of people who've got that curiosity. So. I absolutely welcome that.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So I think that's about time. We've kind of went about 20 minutes over, but it's glad to see that people are still with us. So we will be running these more in the future. I'm not 100% sure when. It could be weekly, could be bi-weekly. It won't always be Paul. It won't always be myself, but we'll definitely continue this trend as long as people are still interested. And if you are interested in speaking maybe on a future coffee morning or water/tea morning, however you choose to come, let me know, or maybe post about it in the Cyber Lounge. And yeah, I just want to thank everyone for joining. Hope to see some of you in our webinar on gamification tomorrow. The link for that is in the Cyber Lounge, and it's on the West Point Cyber Talent LinkedIn page. And I'll try and post that below.
It's going to be a great one. I had a conversation with Peter a few weeks ago, and it's I was just enthralled by the things he has to say, and again, a real it's a bit naff to say, but it is a real game changer. That if some of the sort of techniques that he's talking about is exactly what we've been talking about this morning. So please make sure you attend that webinar.
Cool. So I guess have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you in the Cyber Lounge.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.